lines of what you're saying. As far as I know, we're about halfway through the 7-year plan, and I just learned that it's about to go through an update process. So I recommend you take a look at that website, and what you're saying. If you want to, I have some info I just got an email about today on when those meetings will be happening and what the options for public input are. Because I agree with you, we need to do better. And I think there's a broad consensus around that. So I was happy to see that there's some updates being made.
Yeah, that's definitely heartening news. Yeah,
info.
Thank you for sharing that. I'll definitely be making my voice heard during that process. Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you so much again. And any additional public comments?
I got one for you. I'm Nick Anderson. I work at Champlain College, so it would behoove me to say that there's a couple of bathrooms right here if you need it. Exits are down the hall and to the left right here, or you can go out that way. So wherever the fire is, there's plenty of ways to get out. Second is I just wanted to give this committee and the neighborhood an update on an upcoming construction project we have going on, hopefully starting at the end of this month. And it's kind of what we call a summer slammer. The limited amount of time when there's not students around is when we're trying to do this renovation. But it's actually a relatively small renovation in the center of our main courtyard right here. So you actually probably won't be able to see any of the construction from a public way, but maybe hear it. But we're just doing we have a small kind of vestibule or addition on the front of our Joyce Learning Center, and we're just going to make that a little bit bigger so that it connects into the neighboring building. So it'll kind of have more connectivity between the two buildings. So it's just a small bump out of an existing vestibule. But some of your neighbors might have already got a DRB notice in the mail for a public hearing on the 14th. Our anticipation is pretty benign, pretty simple construction project. But I wanted to put that invite out there if you want to know more information or you want to see some pictures or some plans. Definitely reach out to me. nanderson@champlain.edu is my email. And yeah, happy to kind of forward any of that information. I'm sure that information will also be on the DRB website too for the packet for the meeting. It's exciting for us. It'll kind of like provide a bit more connectivity. There's 3 classrooms in that building right now that if you want to go to the bathroom, you have to leave the building and go across the courtyard and into another building. So by connecting the two together, it might make things a little more functional. So yeah, as I said, it's kind of right in the dead center of campus here. But happy to provide more info if you're curious. But that should be coming up this summer, and we should, in the flash of an eye, we'll have students back in the fall and be using that space.
Thank you. Thank you. We're always curious, so thanks for the information. All right, so we're going to move on to, if there's any additional public comment, we're going to move on to the solar eclipse. Dale, take it away.
So I am not the expert on this. There's a group in the city called Obscura BTV, and they provided us with a ton of materials, some of which are here and some of which we would love to have people take home with them. They wanted to let us know a few things that I'll kind of read through just to give people a sense of the information. First off, they're saying that they expect this to be the largest natural phenomenon ever viewed. They note that 31.5 million people live in the path of totality, which is like 3 times as many as lived in the path of totality from the last total eclipse, which was in 2017. And an additional 150 million people live within 200 miles. So that's a lot of numbers. But anyway, it's going to be a big deal, not just in Burlington, but across the country. They wanted to let us know that there's an emergency response center that's going to be open with the fire chief and the police chief closely coordinating and preparing for this along with neighboring municipalities. There are going to be crossing guards downtown to ensure safe pedestrian access. There are going to be a lot of streets closed, including Route 127, which is what do we call that?
Beltline.
The Beltline, thank you, which is going to be used for parking and is going to have shuttle buses coming off it. with shuttle stops every quarter mile. There is parking in the downtown garages. They are adding bathrooms downtown with 5 porta potties on Cherry Street near Church Street, 3 porta potties on Main Street near City Hall. Those are all going to be serviced on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. There is a bunch of programming that I'm not going to try and summarize, but we will put all of this information in our meeting minutes, and I think it's all available on the city's website. And there are viewing sites at Battery Park, at Waterfront Park, at Perkins Pier, at Oakledge Park, at City Hall Park, at Roosevelt Park, and at Letty Park. And all of those have bathrooms available. They also gave us materials, and I want to just kind of point this out. There's these informational signs that are back here that I hope folks, if they're interested, will take time to read, or if you're like me and don't feel like reading them right now, take pictures of them and read them when you get home. They gave us, I think, 1,000 pair of glasses. I didn't actually count, but I think they're like rubber banded packets of 100. So please, everybody here, take as many as you think you can use or give away. We have already given 100 pair of glasses to the King Street Youth Center, which isn't technically in Ward 6, but which a lot of Ward 6 families make use of. We also offered glasses to the Lund Family Center, but they had already been donated glasses from somebody else. And if anybody has any ideas about what else we could do with these glasses, we don't want them to go to waste.
The retirement home down here on Church.
You know,
Church Street, it's
are you,
the assisted living.
yeah,
Behind
behind Decker Towers. They may have already gotten two. It's like, there's a lot of this stuff around, but that's a great idea. And that actually reminds me, I had meant to check with Ruggles House, which I walk past pretty regularly. And maybe I'll just take some and drop them off there. Anyway, but please, like, really take as many as you want. There's also little informational sheets there that I think would have the website that would have all this information that I am not going to try and read right now. The city also gave us a solar spotter, which we couldn't really figure out how to use. In partial appreciation of Champlain College making this space available to us, I asked Nick if he thought that Champlain College could use it, and he said yes. So he's going to figure out how it works and have it available for their event. But you said you were going to geek out on it. That is a direct quote.
It's pretty cool, like laminated wood. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a nice looking thing. Anyway, and then both Champlain Elementary and Edmonds Elementary expressed some interest in getting that. They're not open on the day of the eclipse, so they didn't have a way to make use of it that day, but they expressed some interest in getting that after the fact, because it can be used not just during the eclipse, but during other, I don't know, solar observations, I guess. And I'm so glad that Tom picked up the camera filters, because in addition to the glasses, we've got, I think, about 10 solar camera filters. They're not for use with fancy cameras, I don't think, where you would want to have like the kind of filter that, you know, attaches to your lens. But if you're taking pictures with your iPhone, I think they're the thing. And so if anybody would like to grab one of those tonight, please do. Yeah.
As a local resident who's a geek, I have a physics degree. The issue is you don't want to look at the sun while it's partially obscured. When it's fully obscured for the 3 minutes, you can take the glasses off and look at the, but you have to know exactly when that time is. And yeah,
326 to 329.
even if you have a nice camera, those filters work. You just black tape them around your lens and they're fine.
Awesome. Any other additional information that people have, or questions or comments or
Yeah, just
ideas about what we can do with this stuff.
locally, Church Street, College Street will, from Church Street all the way to the waterfront will be blocked from traffic. So that's the pedestrian corridor for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of road closures. I've
Yeah,
seen a
all
map,
the
but I
road
don't
closures,
have it handy.
all the roads are closed down near the waterfront. But what is Champlain College doing and what's UVM doing?
Trying to avoid it as much as possible. No, so classes are technically still in session, but our faculty have been given the opportunity to choose. I think 95% of our faculty have said online classes today, folks. Just so they don't have to come into Burlington if they're from outside of Burlington. We're planning on hosting some things to keep the kids busy during that time. So, setting up some things like that and classes and all the good fun activities. But the one thing I wanted to kind of mention too is that while there's plenty of closed streets in Burlington that day, from what we're hearing, I've been in emergency meetings about solar eclipses all day. And what we're hearing is that every road is going to be terrible, right? It's just going to be gridlock no matter where you go. So the advice is find a spot, stay in it for 8 hours, whether that's home or wherever.
Or ride a bike.
Or ride a bike or walk. Definitely get out to the Burlington things and enjoy them. But that the worst traffic is likely going to be from 5 p.m. onwards. So don't expect to try and get anywhere at 7 p.m. for dinner.
We have
5 p.m. on.
After everyone's had their frivolity. No, I mean,
Well,
That's when everybody's trying to get.
59 is not gonna be able to handle 50,000 cars.
well, they're saying that northern from Montpelier north, they're expecting up to 200,000 people. So Burlington itself, and they'll all be using 89, and Burlington itself, would see a good chunk of that people. So yeah, don't expect to go anywhere after the eclipse.
Just so we know, Councillor Shannon is joining us online. Councillor, go ahead.
Hi, I don't know if you can make me a participant, so then I could see you, but I wanted to let you know that CSWD had posted something on Front Porch Forum about collecting the glasses afterwards. Oh, looks like I'm being made a panelist. Thank you for that. Hi.
Hi,
Hmm.
welcome.
Yeah, so there are collection points. They listed UVM. I don't know where at UVM, but they're collecting the glasses at Hula, at the parks, including Waterfront Park, Battery Park, Roosevelt Park, Letty, Oakledge, all have collection sites for the 1,000 glasses being distributed by every NPA. They told us they were giving NPAs 500 glasses, Dale, so I don't know if
We just got we were told 500 and I already took 100 to give to King Street. And then we got our box and it has 1,000. I counted
Oh my
like a package of 100 and there's 10 of them.
yeah, I planned early myself. I bought 60. But whether they're used or unused, these collection sites, they are for reuse. So they're not actually for recycling. They will be shared and used again. So if they're brand new, it's still a good place to bring them.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for reminding us about that.
Thank you, Councillor. So we're going to move on to the councillor updates. Yep, go.
So-
Go ahead.
Just a couple things.
Charlie, can you just introduce yourself?
So I'm Charlie G. I work for Town Meeting Television and I'm a long-standing NPA steering committee member in the city. So one thing has to do with Town Meeting TV. So we're actually going to have like 4 or 5 crews out basically recording people's responses. So if you see me walking around or Travis or Steve or whatever, feel free to just like walk up and say hello or what you think of the event or whatever, because that'll become part of a permanent record for the next 1,000 years. So you're perfectly welcome to participate in that. The second thing is about what to do with a lot of these. If I don't know any myself, but if I knew anyone from Westford, like the Westford School District or Northfield or Putney or something, they probably, I'm going to assume some of the smaller towns probably are not providing these. That's just my assumption. And so if you really wanted to, if you had a connection in a small town nearby, like Milton or something, you might just want to call the school district and say, do you have any of these? Do you want me to bring you up 100 of them or something? And I guess it's a little late in the ballgame to do that, but that's just a thought that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna be moving on to city council updates. We have city councilor Becca Brown McKnight and city councilor, rather, district councilor Joan Shannon. We're gonna start with Ward 6 councilor. Yes,
great.
Becca McKnight.
Share. Okay, well, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here at the first NPA since I was sworn in on, when was that? Monday, which is just this week. Feels like it was 3 weeks ago. So yeah, I am just getting started, and I've really been spending a lot of my time getting to know my colleagues, in the Progressive Party, and as well as city staff, and learning a lot about how everything works here in Burlington. We've also received our committee assignments. So I'm excited to share that I'll be joining Councilor Shannon on the Ordinance Committee, which is a committee that has a pretty large purview around the city. It includes work on neighborhood code, as well as a lot of initiatives that intersect with sort of the rules around town, and certainly public safety and a lot of other topics there. And I'll also be chairing the Parks, Arts, and Culture Committee, which I'm really excited about. I think of that committee as a lot of the fun stuff that happens in town, like a lot of the Eclipse programming is under that, sort of would intersect with that committee. And the third committee I'll be serving on is the REIB, Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And I'm really excited to dig into that work as well. I know today we were asked to give an update on neighborhood code. And I think Joan will probably touch on this more. So I won't give a ton of details, but overall, I just want to say I'm really glad we took that historic leap forward to address the housing crisis. In my view, I had wanted to take some more time to get it right, which I'm glad we ended up doing by, I don't know if everyone is aware, but there was an amendment added that delays permitting on the second structures that are allowed until October. So we have 6 months because a lot of the community's questions and concerns around neighborhood code had to do with that second structure. And so we'll have a chance now to get those questions some good answers and work things out with the Planning Commission. I just learned today that the Planning Commission will be taking up neighborhood code next on their agenda on April 23rd. To start discussing what kind of remains, as well as there's a whole phase 2 of neighborhood code. So mark your calendars if you're interested in engaging at that meeting. There's a form online that you can sign up for to get specific alerts on neighborhood code and planning in the city. And I have a list of questions I will be taking to that commission, mostly. I think we have a serious need for a forecast or a projection of the number of expected units that we think will be built each year, so that we can all have a sense of both, the impact that additional housing will have on our neighborhoods, as well as how effective it will be these changes will be to actually solving the housing crisis, which is the intent. And then I also think getting a forecast of the number will help inform things like wastewater, stormwater, and all the infrastructure needs that go along with it. And I also have a lot of questions around affordability and perhaps home ownership incentives. So that's a little bit of what's on my list. I want to hear from all you here and kind of get a more robust list of questions to get answered around neighborhood code. That's all I had. Joan, can I pass it over to you? Or Romeo, I guess
Yes,
you're running the show
absolutely.
here. So
Yes. And then absolutely we can have the engagement thereafter.
Perfect.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Okay, well, thank you, and I'm thrilled to be serving with Becca, and you have big shoes to fill, Becca, with Karen Paul stepping down. And I thank Karen too for all of the work that she has done. And I always say there has never been a city councilor that has provided the level of constituent service that Karen did. And we all owe her a lot for that. As far as neighborhood code, that is probably the topic of the moment. I'll also note that police oversight is now in the police commission. It was referred there after we did a lot of work on it in the charter change committee, but we really didn't get input from, we got input from the police commission along the way, but I don't think we really heeded the input very well, and they didn't, when we came up with the final product, they hadn't really weighed in on that. And the police union and chief really had not weighed in. So we sent it to the police commission so that they could both add their input as well as consider the concerns that were raised by the union and the chief. So neighborhood code started out with a concept that we needed to, most municipalities, if not all municipalities, need to make changes based on, to their zoning based on the legislative initiative called the Home Act. And the Home Act requires that a duplex be allowed to be created under the same dimensional requirements as a single family home. This will be a change for Burlington because a duplex has required a larger lot than a single family home. So we are making that change. In addition, the state legislation requires that fourplexes be allowed in all districts that are on public sewer lines, which is really all of Burlington. And our residential low district, in theory, doesn't allow more than a duplex. In fact, and by that, I mean in the use table, it says that multifamilies are not allowed, that single family and duplexes are allowed, multifamilies are not in the RL. But in fact, you can get a triplex and even a fourplex in the RL because there's an exception to that rule that allows you to add an additional unit if you meet other dimensional requirements. So we are changing that to allow people to create a fourplex with very few barriers to doing that. We're increasing the lot coverage, the allowable lot coverage in both the RL, the low density zones, and RM, the medium density zones. In low density, it's going from a 35% lot coverage plus 10% for things like driveways and walkways and patios and pools to 45% plus that same 10%. And in the RM, it's going from 45% plus the 10% to, it was going to 60%, and we pulled that back through amendments to 55%. There are many neighborhoods that were previously in the low density that are now in medium density. And in Ward 6, that is mostly the area around South Union Street. So South Union Street is becoming a residential medium district. Those side streets like Spruce Street and Kingsland Terrace, those also go into RM. And then St. Paul Street and Shelburne Road become corridor districts, which allow the most intensive zoning. And so it's a very significant change. Even without the secondary structures, it's still a very significant change for everyone. And hopefully it's going to allow for the infill development that I think we say we want. We have had, when it was warned, somebody applied for a permit here in Lakeside, and I think that that kind of enlightened us to what was possible and maybe what is likely. And it caused concern among neighbors because what was proposed was changing what is a triplex to a 4-unit building. And the whole neighborhood is on the National Historic Register, and the second building was going to be larger, taller than the front building. And there was going to be it was going to be 3 units with 2 bedrooms in each unit in the secondary structure and no additional parking. So that raised a lot of concerns because we have, not with neighborhood code, but a year ago or so, we eliminated all parking requirements. And that may be one of the biggest concerns for the neighborhood, is the number of cars that will be added with the added units and no parking spaces for them. So now the secondary structure is going to be on hold until October 1st. And the Planning Commission, and I expect the Ordinance Committee, will be discussing if we want to make changes to what's allowed in the secondary structures. But also, right now, we allow planned unit developments on lots of 2 acres or more. And the neighborhood, when we did the neighborhood code, we didn't get to address planned unit developments, but it's expected that we're going to be allowing planned unit developments on much smaller lots. And so that discussion is also going to be happening at the Planning Commission. And I'm not sure if we're going to be doing a joint committee with the Ordinance Committee, or it will go to the Planning Commission and then come to the Ordinance Committee, but that discussion has not been had yet. So that's kind of a lot. I don't know if people have questions about it.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions for the counselors or?
I have a question. I'm Mills Forney. I'm on the steering committee for Ward 6. I'm just curious. Thank you so much for the overview, Joan and Becca. In terms of the when we're talking about adding additional units, is it going to be primarily by building additional structures on the properties, or is it going to be taking an existing structure and bumping it out just a bit to have like 1 additional unit? So from a triplex to a 4-unit, or a duplex to a triplex.
I
Or
would
maybe-
say there's multiple ways that those units could be added. You could take a single family home and turn it into a 4-plex. And that will be easier to do because we don't currently, with a few exceptions, we don't really allow you to turn a single family home in the RL to a 4-plex. Lot coverage often comes, in order to do it, you probably need to build new stairways and access points. It's probably going to involve some bumping out here and there. You're going to run into the dimensional standards, which include setbacks, lot coverage, and we've made it easier in terms of setbacks. The setbacks are much less than they were. We've made it easier in terms of lot coverage. In some places, much easier. In some places, a little bit easier in terms of those dimensional changes. And as well as building additional units, which we've now talked about having a secondary structure. But in addition to that, you may be able to build multiple structures on not just 1 secondary structure, but you could build what they call a cottage court. You could build, so attached units or detached units with multiple structures. That's the piece of the conversation we haven't really had yet, except in concept. We haven't worked on any of those details.
Thank you.
Can you just introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Bob Lighty. I live on Tower Terrace, which is behind a Champlain College dorm, which is infill from 1941. And one thing that people don't talk a lot about is that people that live in infill are the nicest people and very friendly and get along really well. Infill is a wonderful thing. Think about the people as opposed to the that we're going to be providing homes for. And relative to parking, next door to me is a zoned required, because there was once a business there, house that had to have 12 parking spots put in because the zoning required it. And now those 12 parking spots just sit there empty all day. It's a waste. And when you talk to developers, which I have, they know who they're selling and renting to. And if they're selling or renting to people that need cars, they put in parking. If they're selling and renting to people that don't have cars, they don't have parking, because it's $50,000 a pop to put a parking spot in. So, putting it in zoning code and requiring it ends up with a lot of extra parking that is not a great thing for our environment or our communities. Thank you.
And one thing I'll say, I think that the 50,000 number is for structured parking. And I also believed that that would be the case, that, that they need to meet the market demands. And one thing we're seeing in Lakeside is that that unfortunately hasn't been the case here.
Thank you, Counselor. Any additional questions or comments? Yeah, I'll speak.
My name's Tim Stevens. I live on South Union Street. I wanted to speak out in support of the neighborhood code generally. It seems like housing is really the fundamental problem in Burlington right now. I mean, everything we talk about, public safety, the brain drain, housing affordability, it's the issue of the moment in my view. And it would be great to have the opportunity to say, like, build housing that I could put my friends in, as someone who's fortunate enough to own their own home. I'd like to know if there's ever been any consideration for taller buildings when considering this. So right now, the height limit from the neighborhood code is 3 stories, as far as I know. Why not 4? Why not 5, even, as the fire codes are soon to be updated. They're being looked at right now in Vermont right now to make it easier to build single staircase buildings that can have that can be taller. So, why not? It seems like if we have stormwater concerns or concerns about green space and preserving them, then a really easy place to build housing would be in the sky.
That was considered by the committee, particularly on the corridors. And I am forgetting at this moment exactly where we settled, but I think we did make the corridors denser and I think taller than was originally proposed. But there were also the idea behind neighborhood code, and what was really promoted to the residents when we embarked on the project was that it would be infill development that fit in with the neighborhood, that was similar to what was in the neighborhood, but allowing more of it and allowing that to go into backyards. And why not build a tiny house in the backyard? So there was also some pushback when we, for abutters to the corridors where the taller structures and more dense structures were being talked about. But there definitely was that sentiment presented, and I think it was about finding a balance between interests, really.
I'll also add that as I've learned more about this, it's become clear that, this is the first step in the neighborhood code. And so whether it's needing to look at height, whether it's needing to rethink the number of structures or add in green space requirements or add in affordability requirements, that's all change that can come in the future. And it would be sort of an amendment to what's already there. So it's meant to be updated as the needs of Burlington change.
Ask another question. So also mindful that the housing stock in Burlington is pretty old. Has there been discussion around requirements for new energy efficiency levels, things like that for any new buildings or units that might be added? Or would it be kind of consistent with what's already there?
I don't know that.
Those discussions were not part of neighborhood code, but we have had, we have greatly increased energy efficiency standards, and particularly with regards to heating types is one area where, new construction needs to be electrified. And I can't recite all of those changes now, but I can just tell you that that has been a very strong focus for us, separate from the neighborhood code, and many initiatives that have been put forward as part of the net zero, the roadmap to net zero energy program through BED.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Do we have any additional comments or questions or?
I just have a kind of question, kind of comment, not about neighborhood code.
Okay.
But because we have our first new city council member for a long time.
Yes.
And also while Joan is here, I just want to express on behalf of the NPA that we, on behalf of the steering committee, I should say, that we want these meetings to be useful for you as a way to learn about resident concerns, as a way to solicit information and opinions from us, as a way to, ask questions of us, and also tell us what you're doing and tell us what you need opinions on. So we talked about this at our steering committee meeting. We just want to make sure that you know that we are here in no small part to funnel opinions up to you and encourage you to contact us with questions that we can put on the agenda or anything like that at any time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Dale. And I think we're going to come back to you as well again. We're going to now, if there are no any additional comments or questions for the counselors, I want to thank both of them for being here, of
I
course.
do have one more
Yes.
small announcement if we have time.
Please go.
So I just had a meeting with the Department of Public Works and I learned a lot. And I asked them, I said, Department of Public Works is in charge of our roads, our wastewater systems, our parking, and even more than that, but that's the basics. And the person who's in charge of stormwater said that, so I said, if you had the opportunity to make a request of citizens of Burlington to make your job easier, better for the environment. And the person who piped up said that if everyone installed a rain barrel collection on their property and a low flow toilet, for which we have a rebate program available, it would make a big difference in our stormwater and our lake quality. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you, Counselor, again. And we're going to move on to the NPA business. And in this case, it's going to be a review and vote on the proposed new NPA bylaws. And I'm going to hand that over to Dale.
Thing.
Yep.
So we have a number of copies of the proposed bylaws in the room. I see folks around here have them. I don't know if those who came in later. Yeah, looks like they were still here. Okay, good. So just to explain what's going on here, all of the city's NPAs have been asked or required by city council to update our bylaws to ensure that we are operating in a respectful, welcoming, and non-discriminatory way. This is not to suggest that we've been doing anything that wasn't welcoming, respectful, or non-discriminatory in the past, but they wanted us to include some new language in the bylaws that addressed that and made clear what the expectations were. So the city also gave us sample bylaws to use that includes that language. We, as the steering committee, reviewed the sample bylaws, and we basically want to propose to adopt them in place of our existing bylaws. The only thing that we did that is different from the sample that was given to us from the state, from the city rather, was to add this statement of purpose. That's the very first paragraph on page 1. This is something that is in our existing bylaws, and we thought it made sense to continue just explaining it. And this is kind of, it was sort of in the process of reading this and talking it through that led to the comment that I made to Becca and Joan just before about what the NPA is intended to do in terms of helping the city get citizens' views of city's needs and helping provide citizens with the opportunity to participate in making recommendations with respect to government decisions, things like that. So we thought that was useful to keep here. Other than that, this is basically what the city recommended. It sets forth how we meet, how we provide notice, what's a quorum, which is 10 people, and that's what we have already. And luckily we seem to have that many, so we will be able to vote on these tonight. Setting the agenda, responsibilities of the steering committee members, and that's kind of about it. And the non-discrimination that I mentioned, that was kind of the reason that we are developing new bylaws here. So I don't know if folks have questions or comments. Al?
Basically, every NPA is doing this at this point.
Yes. I mean, Fosca could probably tell us better, and we might be behind because City Council actually wanted each NPA to have this done by a date that has already passed, but we got behind.
Yeah, I can just speak to that briefly, but basically the city council resolution that was passed in October of 2023, and it asked that the NPAs make these changes to their bylaws by the end of January, so January 31st, 2024, or as soon as practicable. And so wards 4 and 7, for instance, they've been doing special meetings to really update their bylaws. They looked at the sample bylaws, had many additional meetings besides the regular NPA meetings, so that they can put together a version of the bylaws that they thought was good for their NPA, and they'll probably be voting on those at their meeting this month. So that's the most work I've seen done on the bylaws personally for the NPAs. But yeah, I think according to the city council resolution, the idea is that the NPAs are working on these changes and should make them as soon as possible.
Oscar, I have a question. Has there been any updated deadline?
There is no updated deadline as far as I know. But yeah, the deadline technically passed. So I think from what I've heard from those who sponsored the resolution, the idea was that they wanted the NPAs to at least start the process in January. And so CEDO kind of put together some sample bylaws working with the city attorney's office to provide kind of the NPAs with some guidelines on what was required to include, different language to use. And we put those together before January, and those have been available to the NPAs. So yeah, the idea is to make those changes as soon as possible, I believe.
Any other questions or comments? In that case, I think we just put it to a vote
Yes.
to,
Does it need to be moved, or I don't know what you're?
It doesn't say that in our bylaws.
Mhm.
Right, okay, but it doesn't say Robert's rules or anything like that.
No, it doesn't. So I think we can just put it to a vote. And or we can put in the minutes that Romeo moved.
Counselor, want a second?
Sure, I second.
And Becca seconded. I'm typing the minutes as we speak. And so voting is open to all residents of Ward 6. So if we have any guests here who aren't from Ward 6, I would just ask you not to vote. And other than that, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, unanimous.
Can we just make sure that we count the votes online? So do you mind just calling the vote for those online? Just to make sure we can see.
Yes.
If they can raise their hands if they want to say yes.
For those online, would you mind raising your hand in favor?
I actually said yes, but then I realized I don't live in Ward 6. I am not eligible to vote.
Oh, election fraud going on.
I don't want to get sued for voter fraud.
Okay, Posca, were you able to see that?
Is there anybody opposed online?
Hands going down, that's good.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
thanks for checking that. Posca.
Yeah, abstaining.
I think Oscar's abstaining. But
Okay,
Go ahead.
so, I'm actually gonna just go out of order here. The one other thing that I was asked to report out on was that I served as the Ward 6 representative to the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Commission. And this was just really, it was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun. So the city gets like $650,000 yearly from the federal government to spend on projects or programs that will alleviate poverty, basically, putting it in the most simple terms. And so the city solicits applications from individuals or businesses or organizations, mostly, in fact, organizations, for either public service projects, which are things that address early childhood education and childcare, economic opportunity, housing and homelessness, and health projects. That's one bucket of money that this year was roughly $100,000. And we had like 12 or 13 applications, all really interesting, really worthy projects. And we had to choose only 5 because the $100,000 had to get divvied up, and they don't want to just give little amounts of money. They want to give an amount of money that will make an impact. And then we have like more than $500,000 to spend on development projects. And those are used for public facilities and improvements, as well as affordable housing. I will say it was a little bit frustrating that there weren't even enough worthy applicants to use up all of that money. Now, more applications may come in over time. But I sort of just wanted to let people know that this is something that happens, that the federal government gives us this pot of money. The city has a process where it sets our priorities for what kind of projects to spend this money on. And then it calls together people from each of the different wards in the city, as well as some representatives of city government, representatives from education, and from the State Agency of Human Services. And we review all the applications. And so basically, I want to thank Ward 6 for giving me the opportunity to participate in this process. And if anybody wants to see the final list of applications and awards, I can give you the website where it's posted on the city's website. So that was my report out on that.
Can we include that list in the minutes, actually?
Good idea. We will do that, yeah. And then the last item of business, Mills, maybe you're the one to do this.
Happy to.
How do we spend our money?
I think yeah, we had we've been raising this within our past few meetings actually. We have a small budget that's allocated to each NPA on an annual basis. Fosca, you can check me on this, but I think it's coming up. Is it June 30th, right? The end of the fiscal year for the city. And we haven't spent much of our money. I think it's $2,000. $2,500. Thank you. And in the past, we've used this to purchase pizza for NPA meetings. So anybody who came to a meeting just like this one, we had food available, which was great. But we actually found that not many people were really eating it or were interested. And maybe there's a better use for that money. So one idea that was floated was the idea of doing something like Love Ward 6 Day. And we could solicit ideas from this group, from other members of the community on something fun we could do or something great we could do for our community to apply that money to. So it could be something as simple as running a food truck, for a day, right? Or
A cleanup day.
Yeah.
We don't have any parks in Ward 6, but just a street cleanup, or if we had maybe a nonprofit that we wanted to help out and do a beautification project for. So we really wanted to throw it out to people as, what could we do that would bring people together and help our community?
Can I throw something out?
Well, I was just going to quickly say, yeah, would be process. Are you looking for ideas tonight or over the next period of time, or?
I think both. We have a link that we include in the newsletter that goes out. We can send around the minutes as well. But if you want to share ideas afterwards, we'd love you to do that. But any ideas here tonight as well, we'd love that.
But Councilor Shannon and
Councilor, go ahead.
I was contacted by Bruce Wilson, who works a lot with kids and has an organization that does lots of good things in our community. And he's organizing a graffiti cleanup. And he was soliciting funds for the graffiti cleanup. And I could share that information. I don't maybe with you, Romeo. Should I send that to you?
Yes.
I think it would be a great place if both the NPA wants to give money to this effort, but also for the NPA to be coordinating with Bruce. Because it's going to be an all volunteer thing. The money just goes to the materials that are needed to do the graffiti cleanup, I believe.
that's great.
That sounds something.
That's the kind of thing. That's a great example of the type of project that we're looking for.
I wonder if we could do a graffiti cleanup that leads into a food truck celebration.
Good way to draw people in. Yeah.
Well, spend the morning cleaning up and then we have a little fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe we close a block down and.
Or, an ice cream truck or something like that. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to him and include everybody.
Yes.
Do you ever have a board kind of like block party or whether you have a food truck? I mean, it's kind of along the same idea, but to get the neighbors to know each other?
I was going to suggest the same thing.
Oh.
And I know exactly
Oh.
what street would be used.
Yeah, I know. Which one?
Excuse me.
South Willard.
That's great. Can you move to the microphone so people online can hear your suggestion? Thank you. Please just
I'm
introduce yourself.
Wendy Hacken. I live on 352 South Winooski. And what I was suggesting is having a oversized block party, which would be for Ward 6, so the neighbors would get to know each other. And then the gentleman here had an idea of which one, which.
Oh, yeah. My name is Nick, and I think we should do that block party idea, and we should do it on South Willard Street. We should block off to vehicular traffic and let people walk on it and experience what that could be like, because it's something that I think we can all agree is where we're going to get to in the future. So let's bring the future a little bit closer.
Yeah, I'm on the walk bike council that and we're working on how to get the streets closed on a more expedited basis. It's really hard to do. It takes like 5 days of work to get through the city process to shut down a street. So, it's just hard work to do. We want to make that simpler and make it doable. One proposal that we're making is we're going to have September 22nd is No Drive Day nationally. And so if anyone's interested in working on this with me, we would like to have groups of riders and have shut down streets to go through town on September 22nd. You're in?
Absolutely.
All right.
Sign me up. Feel where I live.
Just down the street.
Perfect. Any additional comments for the budget?
Charlie should, okay, I'm Charlie again. So the thing with, your money is about to run out. So if you're going to do something this spring, you've got to get all your receipts to the city by like as close to June 1st as you can, because they still have to process it. But if you go beyond that, you're going to lose whatever you didn't use. And then starting on July 1st, you get another $2,500. So if you don't get it done in this narrow period of time, you can still start over from scratch. So other things you could use the money for are like, let's say you wanted to, you could buy something like a speaker system, a couple of microphones and a speaker, like Wards 4 and 7 is about to do. So they're improving their audio in their large space. Block parties are great. So a lot of the things that the money got used for in the past really wasn't all that connected to the NPAs, which is originally what the money was supposed to be for. It was supposed to have something to do with the NPA. But if you do a block party, you can do an NPA informational thing. So that's an easy one. But like Wards 2 and 3, we've spent that money to do really strange things. Like we helped to beautify a path through the cemetery one year. Other times we've done sidewalk art or graffiti art, that kind of thing. So you can use it on all kinds of different things. But you might want to just bear that in mind that technically it's supposed to be used to somehow support your NPA in some fashion. Again, in the past, it really hasn't been used that way most of the time. But for instance, you could provide food here for your meeting, which is what most of the NPAs do. Now, this room's kind of small, so I'm not sure you can. Yeah. And you're kind of outgrowing your space here, but because food will bring in more people to your meetings, and I'm not sure you're getting kind of close to your limit here. But that's the thing.
We've got a bigger room when we're ready for it.
Okay, that's good. But yeah, it's like, so you got to get your receipts in if you're going to do something and you want to use you don't want to waste your money because that money is just going to go back into the general fund. So that's where it came from. So that's where it's going back to.
Thank you, Charlie.
So I have a little bit more information on the graffiti and timing, if that's helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
So the graffiti cleanup is going to be April 27th from 4 p.m. to 8:15. And the way it is structured from 4:15 to 5, there's a graffiti removal demonstration. From 5 to 6, you pick up graffiti materials. From 6 to 7:15, you clean up graffiti. And then at 7:15, you return unused materials, get swag bag, and enjoy a live DJ. I sent the email that I received from Bruce Wilson to a few of you that I had emails for, which is Romeo, Becca, Dale, and Bob. And because it's April 27th, I think that if the NPA wants to designate money for that, you're not going to have another meeting before that event. And if you want to maybe identify, I don't know if the steering committee wants to work on identifying some sites in Ward 6 and coordinating volunteers for that, or just putting something out on Front Porch Forum. but wanted you to know that there's not going to be another meeting for further decision making before the
Right.
event.
So one other option we have is possibly coordinating with Bob if there's a subsequent day. I mean, if we can get the training on some people can get the training on the 27th and organize the subsequent day after the 27th. I don't know if that would be an option.
It's a good idea. We can look into it. I think these are really fantastic ideas. So thank you, everyone. And we would love additional thoughts, I feel like, to share them. And we can look into each of these a bit more. And then maybe we can come back to the next meeting with something we can vote on with some dollars and what we could do potentially, if that works.
Well,
One
I
thi-
wonder,
Mhm.
like, I don't know how much graffiti removal equipment costs, but I wonder if, given that we have a quorum here, if we want to get an okay to use at least some chunk of that funding, depending on
That's a good
what we
idea.
learn about this.
Yeah.
And just do our second vote in one night, which,
I'll entertain that.
okay, so I move that we designate up to $600 to be spent on this, depending on, maybe in the discretion of the steering committee, depending on what we can learn based on the information Joan sent us.
I second that.
I just want to say, you have to warn about technically. So this, I don't know that you have to warn this vote.
We have not warned this vote.
Is that in the bylaws that we just passed?
Meeting law.
Oh, that's public meeting law, right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because the last one, the vote on is right in your agenda. so
Right.
it's,
No.
No, thank you for keeping us honest, Bosca.
We are eager to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we can't do
We'll
that.
vote again.
But we can probably learn more, and I'm sure we can support this type of effort, even if it's not this
In some
particular
way.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it'll be ongoing, and maybe letting Bruce know that we're going to be voting on
Right.
this at a warned meeting would be helpful to him, because I do need I think they need a lot of materials, and I think it would be really meaningful to them.
That sounds great. So the new bylaws do say that one of the things the steering committee is supposed to do is oversee the allocation of funding from the city, including soliciting and vetting community proposals and presenting a slate of proposals to the NPA for voting. So, thank you, Fosca, for keeping us on track. Darn good thing you're here. Otherwise I'd get us in trouble.
Okay, can I say one last thing? So you can actually start spending your money in July. So you can have a discussion in July about all the money you want, instead of waiting until the last minute.
Yep.
Okay, so you can start
Yes. Yeah.
in the next fiscal year.
As long as we we make that determination and allow sufficient time.
Yeah.
For people to vote on it. Okay, so we'll take that action for the next.
We'll get ready.
for
For the
next
agenda.
There we go. Slate of proposals.
One thing that I do want to mention with this is we're getting into things that are going to require more probably coordination. So we're going to be looking for volunteers from throughout the ward to help pull this together and make it a success.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, are there any additional comments or questions for the counselors or any subject matter?
I just wanted to make one brief comment. I spent a lot of time in Berlin. They have tons of graffiti there. And when you talk to them, they said, we've tried suppressing speech and it didn't work out for us. So, graffiti's a great expression. But when I talked to a fellow Trenton-born muralist that works in the Old North End, he told me that what we're looking at is there are some people have some talent, but most have almost none. They need to be mentored. The people that are doing it are a bunch of suburban kids that are coming in and messing with our town. and he thinks they should be removed. If you want to see really nice graffiti, the new Champlain Parkway goes by some buildings on the backs of buildings that are just gorgeous. There's some really nice graffiti in town, and hopefully there'll be more of it that is allowing people to express. And relative to Becca's work with the Art Council, there's going to be art on the new Main Street project. And I would strongly suggest that we put some slate down there that allows people to express themselves. We need public expression that is positive and allow for it. We should embrace that. Slate's a great material that Vermont's known for. I've seen it in Charlottesville, Virginia, and it's extremely successful in terms of allowing people to express themselves. It would be great.
All right, if there are no any additional comments, we're gonna adjourn this meeting at 7:43 p.m. tonight.
And just a reminder, people, please take classes.
Please do, yes.
And I think I got everyone, but if there's anybody who hasn't signed in,